So it's been an action-packed week at this hands-on intensive workshop with me and 20 other mainly performing artists working on ways to integrate the arts into education. So by Friday afternoon, as lunch break is closing up, I am very happy to be sitting next to one of these smaller personalities in the room. Hazel is a visual artist who works with youth to create these screen-printed flags as a way of interpreting local plant-based knowledge. And that is maybe just a disclaimer to explain why it didn't seem strange at all that she showed up that day holding a sprig of cottonwood in her hand. Now I recognize this twig that she's holding. It's springtime, so the leaves are bright neon green, fan-shaped, and sort of a tuft at the end of this bony, waxy, knuckled twig. And I know it intuitively because the street I grew up on was lined with these 6 massive cottonwood trees on one side leading down to the river. The house I grew up in, it was only 4 houses away from the Thompson River. Now granted, it was the wrong side of the river, but as a child I didn't know that. It was incredible. And these trees were like sentinels over the neighborhood, reaching up to the dark gray winter sky like dark black skeletons, until one day in spring, seemingly overnight, they would just explode into these bright green leaf buds, changing the color scheme of the whole neighborhood. And then later in the summer, they release this pollen, these kind of cotton blossoms that drift through the air like pixie dust and then accumulate like snow drifts along the seam where the road meets the edge of the front lawn. And then come autumn, when the wind starts to wage a war with the drying leaves, it creates this massive roaring rustle of sound until the wind finally defeats the tree and sends every last golden leaf floating to the end to these brittle sand dunes along the streets. So when Hazel says, holding the cottonwood sprig in her hand, don't you just love the smell of cottonwood? I say, I don't know. See, 10 years prior, I had fallen off my skateboard and hit my head hard enough that I lost my sense of smell. The impact was so great that the nerves in between my nose and my brain were severed and I went instantly smell blind. But nerve regeneration is an amazing thing. Nerves, they do regenerate, albeit very, very slowly and unpredictably. But at this point in my recovery, I could place some smells. I could sometimes get coffee, or the scent of an orange being cracked open as you peel it, and sometimes even BO. I mean, turns out some of the scents that I was missing, I wasn't really missing. But so I take the twig from Hazel and I bring it up to my nose and I inhale deeply, and it smells green and sweet but fresh, crisp, like fresh cotton laundry baking in the sun on an outdoor clothesline on a hot summer day. And I am instantly 8 years old again, racing down the street I live on to check to see how much the water level has changed overnight due to the spring runoff. It's, I mean, at this point I am someone who high-fives herself when she can smell her own farts. So this is like an aromatic orgasm. And then the workshop starts again, and I suddenly feel vulnerable, and I pass the twig back to Hazel, and we dive into the afternoon exploring the constructivist classroom and speculative futurism in the arts and anti-oppression workshop facilitation, and then we say our goodbyes and I make my way home on the SkyTrain and I go into my apartment, and it is like an interactive to-do list that I want to cross nothing off. So I just drop my backpack and head back outside to walk what I reason to be the best treed streets in my area. Because I want another fix, you know? I mean, turns out my local plant-based knowledge is not very good, and from the sidewalks, the tree leaves seem further away than they ever have before, and I don't find a cottonwood tree chasing this scent dragon through my neighborhood. You never do. But I do get lost momentarily in the perfume released from the cherry blossoms opening up in the spring. And then I linger in the cool, spicy scent of a cedar hedge in the shade, and I just drink up this spring evening through my nose. And then I stop at the deli on my way home for a couple slices of thick sliced bacon to fry up for my gnocchi, because there's really no sense in wasting a good scent day.
That's right.